What if Naruto's path led him to build bonds across generations? From Sarada's admiration, to Tsunade's respect, and even Kazuya's unique connection, this is the story of a Naruto harem unlike any other. Chapter 1. Naruto Uzumaki the Gamer Experience. #Land of Fire, Konohagakure no Sato #. Naruto Uzumaki stares at the translucent blue box before him and wonders if this is actually a very lucid dream after gorging himself into a ramen-induced coma. The 13-year-old has finished another day at the Konoha Academy as his teachers target him for even minor things. He often wonders why he is treated in such a manner. Even the villagers were cold to him, often whispering behind his back. The Sandaime Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi often told him to be good and the village would acknowledge him, even inspiring him to become Hokage in the future. Congratulations Naruto Uzumaki. Due to your actions in a previous life, you have been rewarded with the gamer bloodline and several chosen perks in place of past memories. Would like to cover the tutorial? Yes, no. Naruto hesitantly presses yes and a whole host of information is seemingly melded with his mind. Once it is done and his mind feels clearer. He is shocked he of all people in the world has been chosen for such a thing and is impressed by his past self to give him such a chance. He looks through many options, stats, skills, special abilities, titles, reputation, missions, inventory, game store, dungeons and settings. He starts with his stats and it is long list of attributes and their values. Gamer Mind allows one to remain focused even dire situations, for example first kills or powerful foes. Saiyan Body become one of the strongest of the most powerful warrior race. Plus 10 CHK, 10 Vit, 20 Santa. Zenkai Boost will increase stats for every life-threatening injury. Boost will decrease once reaching Super Saiyan. Info. STR is strength and how much you put behind a blow. SPD is well speed. STA is stamina. Dex represents how skillful you can be dodging attacks and how much movement is wasted while dodging. Vit is vitality, so the higher the stat the more damage you can receive. CHK is chakra, so the higher the stat the more chakra you have in reserve to use. CC chakra control, how well one can use their chakra, increases through control exercises. Higher CC means easier use of jutsu. Whiz stat represents how experienced you are overall, and the higher points indicate a higher level of wisdom and insight. All of your stats can be increased in two ways, either by training them individually or allocating attribute points to them. 5 attribute points are given per level. Naruto clicks on Super Saiyan or SSJ and it has 2 skill trees called the Standard Route or God Route with prerequisites of achieving level 100 and learning the Kaioken technique, unlocked at level 50. The Standard Route has SSJ, SSJ2, SSJ3 and SSJ4 with the first 3 having spiky blonde hair of various lengths and greenish-blue eyes, while SSJ3 gives one a more prominent brow and is extremely taxing on Santa. SSJ4 give one reddish-orange fur on their upper body except for their abs and pecs with a red tail, a mane of spiky red hair, greenish-blue or golden eyes having a red ring around said eyes. God Root has SSJ, SSJ2, SSJ3 but swaps to SSJ God, SSJ Blue or SSJ God SSJ, Ultra Instinct and Perfected Ultra Instinct. Wow past me, you put me ahead of the curve. Saiyan Body will let me get strong pretty quick. I may go with standard SSJ route. UI would be nice but would take forever. Besides reddish-orange fur with SSJ4 goes with my red hair and awesome sense of style, Naruto says, picking standard Super Saiyan route. His hair looks like future Gohan. SSJ, achieved at level 100. Power now equal to Ikibi Biju. SSJ2, achieved at level 125. Power now equal to Yonbi Biju. SSJ3, achieved at level 130. Power now equal to Hachibi Biju. SSJ4, achieved at level 150. Power now equal to Kyubi Biju. So I need to be level 150 to get SSJ4, Naruto says and moves on to Harem but blushes at the thought of a girlfriend, before hoping his crush Sakura Haruno is a part of his harem and those hopes were immediately dashed. There were 6 women chosen but could be changed and things will change to suit his choices. The women his past self chose were Tsunade Senju, Sarada Uchiha, Kagaya Hyuga, Kushina Uzumaki, Yor Briar and Fushiraishi. Sarada. Sasuke is the Uchiha I know, Naruto says and clicks her name. Sarada Uchiha. If chosen, the world will change and for the better. Childhood friend and younger sister of Godime Hokage Itachi Uchiha. Mothers were also best friends. After a terrible incident where her clan is massacred by Father Fugaku, leaving her mother, older brother and non-combatants. You offer support and love blossoms. Plus 500 rep with Uchiha survivors and Godime Hokage. So if I chose her, the world would actually change. Is that possible? Naruto thought. He moves to Kaguya Hyuga, and again the only Hyuga he knows is Hinata in his class and Neji in the year ahead of him. Kaguya Hyuga, former enemy of the world and the person your past self defeated. If chosen, the world changes for the better. Kaguya is the daughter of clan head Hiyashi Hyuga and Hitomi Hyuga, mother's friend. You save her from bullies at 10 and love at first sight is formed. Plus 500 rep with Hyuga. So past me fought and decided to give her another chance at life. Man, he has a great heart, Naruto says, before pressing Tsunade. Tsunade Senju, if chosen, world will change. Great-granddaughter of Shidime Hokage Hashirama Senju. Many see her as the princess of Konoha and someone to worship, but you do not, causing her to gain love for you and strive to make you hers. Plus 500 rep with Senju and village. Also slight incest as you are from cousin clans. Choosing her will help with my village rep and she looks pretty, Naruto says and presses Kushina. Kushina Uzumaki, your former mother and former holder of Kyubi no Yoko. If chosen, world will change. Will become your twin sister, full-blown incest, and fellow holder of the Kyubi no Yoko. Your bond is from the womb and only have comfort from each other in a harsh village. I don't know. She may have beautiful hair. A part of me might still see her as my mom, Naruto says and decides to switch out Kushina and looks to the last two women. Your Briar, if chosen, world will not change and does not affect other choices. Your works for Zabuza Momochi is his tool with Hakuyuki. She is exceptionally strong but a little clumsy and a skilled killer. Unlocked on Nami no Kuni mission. You free her from serving Zabuza and she dedicates her life to protecting you, eventually falling in love. Also do not let her drink alcohol. Plus 1000 rep with Nami no Kuni. So I need to go to Nami to get your. Seems simple enough and I like her red eyes, Naruto says and checks out Fu. Fu Shiraishi, if chosen, world will not change and does not affect other choices. Fellow Jinchuriki love. Unlocked on mission to Takigakure no Sato. Fu is the holder the Nanabi Biju and is treated horribly, desiring to make 100 friends. You save her from bad people and become friends, eventually lovers through your bond as Jinchuriki. Plus 500 rep with Taki and Konoha. Okay. I will change Kushina and keep the others, Naruto says and presses yes to change Kushina. Numerous pictures of various girls appear for Naruto to choose as the last member of his harem, some of which better the world and some make the world worse. He finds Sakura and she is hopelessly in love with Sasuke or someone else. This is hard for the redhead but slowly accepts she is a vapid girl, who despite being able to be great decides to wallow in mediocrity. Naruto eventually settles on S-Death Partas and his choices will take effect once he falls asleep and awakens anew, including new memories due to harem choices. S-Death Partas, if chosen, world will change and does not affect other choices. Former apprentice of Amayuri Ringo and user of Hyoten Kekkei Genkei. Unlocked by traveling to Water Country, during Chunin exams. The Godime Hokage decides to aid rebels and free Kurigakure no Sato from the tyranny of Yondaime Mizukage. Will immediately fall deeply in love with you, having slight yandere tendencies but not to harem. Plus 500 rep with Water Country and Kurigakure. Okay, harem chosen. Let's check out the store, Naruto says. The store has weapons, clothes, skills and even food. His orphan stipend is 15,000 ryo, which would have been 25, but utilities and rent needed to be paid, so he would need to spend wisely in the store. He sees a certain jutsu is a must called Kage Bunshin, which creates solid copies of oneself and whatever the clone learns the original learns, but it was 100,000 ryo. Man, I hope can earn some money in a dungeon, Naruto thought and moves to dungeon. A few dungeons appear and start at level 1, second level 5, third level 10 and so on so forth. Naruto tries the first dungeon but needs a weapon to enter, so he buys several kunai and shuriken. He even gains a taijutsu scroll in the process. Cool, Naruto says and a pop-up appears. All the knowledge floods his brain of maneuvering to evade, block, redirect, feint, and everything basic but advanced skills were blocked. New skill unlocked. Whirlpool and Hummingbird Taijutsu Basic. A taijutsu style comprising of mixtures of the Uzumaki clan and Minato Namikaze's taijutsu style, revolving around dodging and deflecting shots, tiring out the opponent, and attacking using pinpoint hits on the muscle and joints. This skill is currently on the lowest level and can go up by 2 tiers, the next being intermediate and the highest being advanced. Observe. Allows one to observe levels and stats or abilities-based levels but increase with level ups. So, this is my clan's taijutsu and combined with my dad's taijutsu. This is amazing, and now I have a link to my heritage. I can't believe my dad is the 4th Hokage, Naruto thought and enters the dungeon. It resembles the forests of Konoha and gives him a sense of familiarity as a wall of texts appears. Welcome to the demonic dungeon. This is the lowest level dungeon available at your current level. The dungeon will automatically increase in level once you complete the dungeon, though you will have the choice to go back to a previously completed dungeon. In the dungeons, you will face opponents with 5 levels more than yours, and the dungeon boss will always be 10 levels above yours. Naruto moves through the forest for about 20 minutes and comes across a green creature having pointy ears, jagged teeth, and a loincloth with a small knife. He uses observe and sees it as a goblin. It's a faster than me, but I got him beat in strength and dexterity. Okay, Naruto says. The goblin chitters and rushes Naruto, but the redhead parries its blow, attempting to swing a left hook, and it dodges, however not the kunai to its brain. The goblin crumbles into dust and the redhead gains some express, but also its knife is more chittering echoes, and Naruto sees 3 more goblins. Alright, Naruto says. 5 hours pass and the redhead has accomplished his quest of 100 goblins and leveled up 4 times with 20 attribute points gained. Now for the boss, Naruto says, after checking his stats, picking to face the dungeon boss. He is transported to a clearing, and standing opposite Naruto is a muscular goblin with barbarian attire and a double-sided axe that looks rare. Goblin champion. This is going to be really tough, Naruto says, using observe and adding his new points to SPD, Whis, Dex and STR. Naruto powers up using his chakra to give him a little boost and equips a spear he found in the forest. The goblin champion roars and rushes forward as Naruto does the same with a heavy thrust, grazing the side of the champion and dodging its downward strike. Only a glancing blow and did minor damage, Naruto says, flinging a few kunai with one hand towards its eyes. One scores and the champion roars in pain, allowing Naruto to close in, piercing its stomach, but the champion swings the flat part of its axe. Naruto groans as he's tossed across the field from the champion's heavy swing. His HP has dropped a third and a stun state is in effect. That was one hit. Naruto says, his vision swimming, but sees the goblin champion coming. I need to move. I can't die in my very first dungeon. I need help, Naruto thought, his body trembling. Then help you shall get, boya, voice says. Naruto feels a surge of chakra as it condenses into numerous chains erupting from his body and through the goblin champion. He slowly loses consciousness as the crumpling champion and the forest slowly fade and the world changes to suit our newest gamer's needs. Naruto awakens in his bed with tattered clothes, but his room looks better than it was when he passed out. The previous day's events come rushing back and he brings up the translucent blue screen. Daily quests, as the name implies, are always given daily and are a way to help you grow stronger. The objectives will become harder as levels rise, so the rewards are more plentiful. So good day and happy grinding. Naruto gasps as he is now level 10 but now has daily quests to grind and try to level up towards SSJ 4. He slips of his bed and takes off his destroyed clothes but opens the store to find some clothes and check his inventory. He sees the goblin champion's axe and it's super rare, worth 100,000, and his blue eyes widen. He now has enough to buy the Kage Bunshin skill, before immediately buying said skill and some new clothes from his stipend fund. He buys a pair of dark fitted cargo shorts, a dark long sleeve shirt with his clan's spiral in red and some reinforced tennis shoes. This is awesome. I wonder what skills I unlocked at level 10, Naruto thought, getting dressed and checking his stats. Techniques entail throwing shuriken, kunai, senbon, or any other throwable weapon. Uzumaki regeneration. Blessed with the famed Uzumaki regeneration, allows you to get up and running from wounds that would take weeks to heal in a matter of days. Chakra chains unlocked. It is a Kekkei Genkei unique to the Uzumaki clan, where users of this technique mold their chakra into chains, which can be used for different purposes, such as sealing one's chakra temporarily, absorbing chakra, or simply binding the target. Kyubi regeneration. Having the Kyubi within you will have its perks. The perk is, having an amazing regen rate for both chakra and health. Flight unlocked. It is a skill used by Saiyan to traverse long distances in a short period of time. Can be passed off as the Jutsu Doden, Keihugan no Jutsu from Iwagakure no Sato. Naruto's eyes nearly bugged out of his skull at the flight skill. I'll be able to fly. That's awesome, he thought. That is interesting, Boya, a voice says, and Naruto looks around. Are you the Kyubi? Naruto says. I am Boya. I am the yin half. Your father sealed my yang self inside himself and they are residing in the Shinigami's belly. I aided you in killing the goblin champion, the voice says. Thanks. So why did you attack the village? Naruto says. I was under the control of some fool wearing a mask and having a Sharingan, Kyubi says. Quest received: find masked Uchiha. Find and defeat the Uchiha responsible for unleashing the Kyubi from your mother and bringing Konoha to near collapse. Clues will appear through certain events. Reward: 1. 50,000 EXP. 2. Sharingan and all abilities. 3. Well, that is convenient, Naruto says. Don't forget your Kenjutsu scroll you won, Kyubi says. Oh right. Thanks Kyubi. Do you have a name? Naruto asks. Call me Musashi Boya, Kyubi or Musashi says. Naruto unlocks his scroll and a rush of information floods his brain. Parrying, deflecting, using your opponent's weight against them, lightning speed sword drawing and much more in the art of Kenjutsu. Uzumaki Ryu style Kenjutsu basic. A Kenjutsu style revolving around overwhelming power, the complete opposite of the Uzumaki's taijutsu, quickly breaks through an enemy's guard with complete ease and efficiency via lightning fast strikes. Awesome. More links to my clan. I'll need to buy a sword from the store, Naruto says and gets his shoes on to go have some Ichiraku ramen before classes. He leaves his apartment and sees it looks better than before, must be due to my harem choices, Naruto thought. Naruto roams the streets seeing blue boxes above their heads, declaring their rank and level as he uses observe on every shinobi. Most genin stayed between level 20 and 35, while chunin were greater and roamed around 35 to 50, though he couldn't see the level of jonin level. Even with observe at level 5 I still can't see some things. Though my stats are nearly genin level and I have 3 years of academy left. Maybe I should try to graduate early, Naruto thought. He reaches Ichiraku and greets the father-daughter pair Tsuki and Ayame, people who have been there most of his life. Naruto orders 15 bowls of ramen compared to his usual 5 and believed his Saiyan body is the cause. I figured I'd find you here, a voice says, and Naruto looks back to see Sarada. She has shoulder length and parted to the right black hair and matching eyes behind a pair of red frame glasses. She wears a sleeveless, buttoned dull red dress bound by a yellow tie and a white belt with matching blouse underneath. A black fingerless glove on her right hand, a black arm warmer on her left arm and a pair of black ankle-length, high-heel sandals with wooden soles. What can I say? I love my ramen, Naruto says, finishing his last bowl and using observe but also gets some memories. Flashback. Sarada Uchiha. Naruto sighs as he wanders the village like wind while people whisper behind his back. The redhead didn't know why everyone did, but it has been like that since he could remember. He soon reaches a small pier in the village near a lake but sees someone there already. The person is a girl his age with a fan symbol on the back of her shirt. Is that the symbol of the people with red eyes? Naruto thought. He makes his way down to her and the wood creaks, causing her to whip around with tears in her eyes. Who are you? The mystery girl says, adjusting her glasses. I'm Naruto Uzumaki and you, Naruto says. Sarada Uchiha and I want to be alone, the girl says. Did something happen? Maybe I can help, Naruto says, and this shocks Sarada, but this simple phrase would benefit her greatly in the future. Did you meet Tsunade or Kaguya on the way to find me? Naruto says, as they leave Ichiraku with a wave to Ayame. No, but I'm sure we will, Sarada comments and adjusts her glasses. Mama wants you have dinner with us, she adds. Sure, Naruto says and sees a blonde girl and white hair girl waiting at the academy gates. So he was at Ichiraku, Tsunade says. She has honey brown eyes with blonde hair in a high ponytail and shoulder-length bangs that frame her face. She wears gray mesh shirt over a teal kimono with short sleeves and red lining around the collars secured by a blue sash, red arm warmers and white thigh highs with closed-toe kunoichi boots. "Good morning Naruto," Kaguya says, smiling with a pink in her cheeks. She has long white hair in a Harem cut with pale white eyes having a lavender tint and white eyebrows. She wears a lavender and cream hooded jacket with lavender cuffs over mesh armor, navy blue pants and black, low-heel boots. The four enter the gates and make their way to their class on the second floor as Naruto uses observe on Tsunade and Kaguya. Flashback. Kaguya Hyuga. 10-year-old Naruto swings in the park amid a winter wonderland as snow covers the village but something interrupts this tranquil time. Freak. Albino. Monster. Show us your freaky eyes. Several voice shout. Naruto hops off the swing and follows the shouting but hear crying as he sees three boys torment a girl with snow-white hair. "Hey, stop!" Naruto shouts and the boys turn to him but laugh. "What are you going to do about it?" one says. Naruto rushes the boys and a fight breaks out but it is one-sided with Naruto on the receiving end of it. The white-hair girl rushes to Naruto's side as the boy walk off with loud laughter. "Are you okay?" she says. "I'll be okay. What about you?" Naruto says. Kaguya. Kaguya Hyuga, the girl says but blushes as Naruto is staring at her. "Pretty," Naruto says and Kaguya blushes brighter. Flashback. Tsunade Senju. Naruto sighs as he listens to a boring lecture from his teacher Iruka with Sarada sitting a row down from him with Kaguya next to her. He is sitting next to the princess of Konoha named Tsunade Senju, who is great-granddaughter of the Shidime Hokage. Many in their class fawn over her but to him she was just another student in the class. "Hey, Uzumaki. Pay attention," Tsunade whisper shouts but Naruto ignores her. "Uzumaki," she says. "Tsunade. Naruto." Outside, Iruka says and many gasp but more so Tsunade, as she glares at the redhead. The blonde and redhead head outside as Iruka shakes his head at her. "This is your fault," Tsunade snaps. "My fault," Naruto says. "You weren't paying attention and got me in trouble. Don't you know who I am?" Tsunade says and Naruto furrows his brow. "I am the great-granddaughter of the Shidime Hokage. Great-grandniece of the Nidime Hokage. My parents are two of the three legendary Sannin," she adds. A scowl forms on her face as Naruto scoffs. "So what? I don't care if you are related to those Hokage. I'll become a Hokage that will surpass all of them," Naruto declares and on the day Tsunade avow. All of their skills are good with Tsunade have the more STR and best CC. Kaguya SPD and Sarada Dex, Naruto thought. Their classroom has a high ceiling with several rows of desks going up, a podium and 3 high black boards. Naruto looks over his fellow students of Choji Akamichi, Shino Aburame, Kiba Inuzuka, Shikamaru Nara, Sakura Haruno, Ino Yamanaka and numerous civilian students. Everyone is pretty average with Shikamaru having the highest WIS, Kiba has a high sta and Shino has a high CHK. He sees Sakura hanging around Kiba as the dog boy always claims he's the alpha of their class. Naruto and the others take their seats but he sees Kiba leering at them but he would put him in his place sooner or later. Soon their teachers Iruka Yumino and Mizuki Tuji arrive but Naruto wonders how much they've changed due to his harem choice. Sarada's brother is Hokage. Plus my village rep is tolerable, Naruto thought but would get his answer about 30 minutes in as Mizuki sends him out of class for glancing out the window. Naruto gets some apologetic looks from Sarada, Tsunade and Kaguya but laughs from Kiba and his lackeys. "Leave a clone in your place. Even add a little of my chakra to reinforce it," Musashi says. Naruto smirks and slips off to the bathroom and creates said clone to send it back as he heads to the dungeon to train most on his new skills. He enters the dungeon and the goblins are now level 15 due to his new level meaning the boss would level 20. Naruto goes to the store to buy a stealth skill and henge skill but uses his stat points. Naruto then creates 4 clones of himself. "Okay, 2 of you work on flying and the other 2 on chakra chains," he says and all 4 nod. He decides to do his daily quests here hence the reason for the stealth skill is it erases one's presence. Naruto groans at the added weight but powers through as it increases his STR and sta in the process. He does his exercises in full view of goblins and kills them as he does his 5-kilometer run. Should I challenge the hidden boss or wait? Naruto thought. You have 5 more tries including this one before you lose this dungeon. I advise using the tries and level up. Though the hidden boss will do the same. All your stats are above 40. Focus on getting them to 50 and get a sword, Musashi says. Naruto finishes his run and falls on his back as his limbs were burning but feels Musashi's chakra is flooding his limbs. Thanks Musashi, he says, as a rush of memories hit his head. Flight, 50%. Chakra chains, 70%. I'll probably need goggles when I fly high up, Naruto says, transporting himself to the boss. The Goblin Champion has a great sword in place of its axe and has a new skill of minion summoning. Naruto takes the initiative and brings out his chains, using them as whips as the champion summons a few goblins. He uses the chains to pierce, choke or toss the goblins like makeshift flails to gain express. The champion rushes Naruto from behind but the redhead turns to use his chains as a way to block the downward blow, digging a small rut as it pushes on its sword. Naruto manages to send the sword right for him to slam a heavy blow to the champion's gut. The champion spews some spittle as it staggers back and falls to one knee but struggles back up before crashing back to one knee. Tatsumaki. Naruto shouts, leaping and connecting with a 3 hurricane kicks to snap the champion's neck. The champion crumbles to dust but this time the redhead is awake to see the spoils as he collects a few knives and the champion's great sword to sell to store and fill his sword fund. Naruto makes it out of the dungeon well after the academy lets but still has about an hour before having to meet Sarada's family for dinner. He takes a quick shower and buys some blue jeans, a white polo shirt with some different tennis shoes. He makes his way to the market district and buys some sweet buns for his godmother but also Pocky for the Godime. After the Uchiha massacre and Itachi's installment as Godime, the Uchiha survivors were moved back into the village proper after being moved to the outskirts of the village after Musashi's attack. There were some dissidents to this decision, namely a village elder named Danzo, but he and his fellow elders lose much of their power, similar to the civilian council which was dissolved and one person chosen. Greed had infested the civilian council and evidence came to light as they were altering various things within the village that made things easier for civilian-born ninja. You made it on time. You said you might not make it on time, Sarada says, greeting the redhead at the clan's compound gate. Yeah, I had to plan something for Iruka-sensei and Mizuki-sensei, Naruto says, following her to the main house. It better not be something stupid. Oh, I talked to brother and he said there will be changes to the academy, Sarada says. Maybe some better teachers, Naruto thought and ruffles his hair. Any details, he says, but Sarada shakes her head. The pair reach the house and Naruto takes off his shoes to follow Sarada to the living room. Also, brother won't be joining us. So it we just the 3 of us, she says, taking the sweet buns from him. Hello Naruto, Makoto says, a soft smile on her face and her long black hair framing her face. Hey Auntie Miko, Naruto says. I'm glad you could join us and thank you for the sweet buns, Makoto says and Naruto smiles. Dinner soon is served and Naruto eats about 3 portions but would hit up Ichiraku to fill his stomach. The 3 would talk about things as Makoto tells more stories about his mother, still keeping his father a secret until he graduates from the academy. Will you take up kenjutsu like Kushina, Makoto says. I wish to but I need a proper sword, Naruto says. The beautiful Uchiha matriarch cups her chin in thought and rises from her chair, perhaps I can help. Kushina left me something, Makoto says, heading to find what Kushina left. What could it be, Naruto asks. I don't know but it must be special, Sarada says. A few minutes later Makoto returns with a sword wrapped in cloth, when Kushina had her sword made by a swordsmith. It was one of a pair. The blade made with special chakra metal found in Uzushio. Her sword was known as Uzumaku Shio no Ken or Sword of Swirling Tides and this one is Uzumaku Tenonatsurugi or Sword of Swirling Heaven, she says, pulling off the cloth. Naruto's eyes widen at the sword with the sheath stained in black lacquer, a red cord around it and the Uzumaki swirl dotting it in gold. The sword has a tsuba similar to the Uzumaki swirl as well and has designs like gold waves on it. Its hilt is wrapped in red and black silk with a gold butt cap. She intended for you to have it, Makoto says, her eyes a little misty. Naruto slowly takes the sword, both hands, a few tears fall on the sheath. Thank you Auntie Miko, he whispers and Sarada softly hugs him as the redhead soft cries. After a few minutes of crying, Naruto bids Sarada and Makoto goodnight and makes his home but uses observe on his new sword, seeing it was rated as mythic and his eyes widen. Your luck is impeccable, Boya, Musashi says. Seems so. I'll test it in the dungeon and with the hidden dungeon boss, Naruto thought. He would wake up at 5 am the next day to do his daily quests, heading to the academy at 8 and leaving about 2.5 kilometers for later. The weekend started tomorrow so he could hit the dungeon 2 more times and level up. Strangely enough, the Hokage, Jonin Commander and a few Jonin were in class today. Naruto tries to use observe on Itachi but like Jonin couldn't see his level. Itachi gives a disarming greeting and begins explaining that the academy syllabus would be changing, though it would not affect them until next year, but he did lay things out going forward. Subjects like flower pressing and other not needed subjects would be removed and core subjected reinstated. First years would learn the history of Konoha, language, math, the founding clans and the clans currently residing in the village. The basics of taijutsu, chakra control, basic handling of kunai and shuriken as well. Stealth and a basic obstacle course at the end of each month to track their progress with physical conditioning to be greatly increased to push their students. The Jonin commander Shikaku Nara put forth the idea of a bi-monthly Shogi Go tournament to improve students' logical and thinking capabilities, something they too would start next month. That will improve your wits, Musashi says and Naruto mentally nods. Second year's core subjects and the tournament will remain the same with taijutsu moving to an intermediate level. Chakra control exercises such as tree walking and water walking will be introduced, being taught until the final year. The basics of shuriken jutsu and improving on their accuracy, the obstacle course becoming significantly harder than the previous year, physical conditioning remaining the same, adding meditation and proper stretching. Weekly taijutsu tournaments will begin to bolster competition in the sense of rivalry, also the introduction of henge, kawarimi and basic bunshin. Third years like them would have taijutsu stepped up and an introduction to genjutsu. Stealth techniques to learn how to spy and trail a person of interest or a target. Shurikenjutsu would now being tested on both static and dynamic targets, obstacle courses up to level, weekly taijutsu tournaments and now monthly Shogi Go tournaments. However, the fourth year is where things would spice up as they can now choose a specialization depending on which field they wished to specialize in. Compulsory subjects such as ninjutsu, taijutsu, and shuriken jutsu, while optional subjects such as genjutsu, iriojutsu, fuinjutsu, kenjutsu, bojutsu and barrier ninjutsu will be added. This will definitely up my stats, Naruto thought. They would have to choose a minimum of 3 or a maximum of 5 and the subjects would be carried on to their final year. Chakra affinities would be tested and taught, 1 offensive technique, 1 defensive and 1 supporting, which would be either C rank or D rank but depends on the student. That year they would also learn about their bodies, both male and female together alongside education. 5th and 6th year would have courses like assassination, torture and interrogation, seduction, counter-seduction, sabotage and infiltration. The final year would fine-tune their skills and prepare them for their genin tests but also be blooded by killing an animal. Seems some can't handle that, Naruto thought. Itachi dismisses them early as it looks like a few have some choices to make concerning their future. I will definitely choose ninjutsu, shurikenjutsu, genjutsu and iriojutsu, Sarada says to Naruto, Tsunade and Kaguya as they leave the academy. I may go genjutsu, ninjutsu, bojutsu and taijutsu, Kaguya says. Same genjutsu, ninjutsu, taijutsu and iriojutsu. My control is very good, Tsunade says, smirking. What about you, Naruto? Sarada asks. Ninjutsu, taijutsu, kenjutsu, bojutsu and fuinjutsu, Naruto says. I bet a few from civilian families may drop out, Tsunade says. Things have been easy so far, Naruto says. The 4 head to a sweet shop and they buy dango, sweet buns, cinnamon buns and a few cakes. Naruto tells Tsunade and Kaguya about his new sword given to him by Makoto, a link to your mom, Kaguya says. Mom often talked about Lady Kushina too, Tsunade says, but their good moods were ruined as Kiba approaches with Sakura. How's it going, beta male? Kiba says, a mocking grin on his face. Yeah, why are you hanging with him? Especially you, Princess Tsunade, Sakura says, looking towards the 3 princesses. Kaguya and I are childhood friends with Naruto, Sarada says. He doesn't see as some pampered princess. He sees me and not my name, Tsunade says, glaring at the Pinkett and Sakura shrinks away. Well Heim, I'll prove to you that I am the alpha of our class and the loser a beta male orbiter, Kiba says, before walking off with Sakura. Maybe take a bath, Kaguya whispers and the others softly laugh. Since the mood has been ruined. I'll see you all later. Hey, we can go shopping tomorrow. Since we need to wear a uniform now, Tsunade says. Sure. What time? Naruto asks. Let's meet at the village square under the clock at noon, Tsunade replies, before leaving. Well, see you tomorrow, Sarada says. Bye Naruto, Kaguya says. Tomorrow, Naruto says, unaware three girls were plotting. I will make him mine, three girls thought. Naruto heads and changes into a tracksuit to finish his daily quest but also tries a double cheeseburger with a soda from the store. It didn't compare to ramen but it was a very close second. The next morning Naruto wakes up at 5 again and does his daily quest but sees a strange sight of a man with bowl cut, very large eyebrows and wearing green spandex. He uses observe and only gets the name Might Guy. Weird, Naruto says, speeding up his run. Weird indeed. Also we should meet face to face, Musashi says. Naruto reaches a park and sits on the ground to look at the morning sky. How? He says. Lay back into my arms and I'll pull you in, Musashi says. Naruto lays on the grass and closes his eyes but suddenly finds himself in an orchard of cherry blossom trees. This way boya, Musashi says, her voice carrying on the wind. Naruto follows the stone path before him and reaches an open shrine, before going up the steps but sees chains leading inside towards a seated figure. She is very beautiful with creamy white skin, long and sweeping darkish purple hair with 6 red whiskers on her cheeks. Her eyes are a luminescent hazel with black slit pupils, wearing a very revealing furicid kimono having several layers and fur-like trim. The colors a mixture of black, purple, light purple and blue. We meet at last boya, Musashi says, as Naruto sees the chains around her wrists and ankles. A Magatama necklace serves as collar having seal on it and a hair piece in her hair. Is this my mindscape? Naruto asks. It is, but it was much worse before things changed, Musashi comments, picking up a Kaizuru and taking a hit. What did you want to talk about? Naruto asks. We are forever linked boya. Meaning when you die. I die, Musashi starts and looks outside, so I wish to impart some history to you, she adds and Naruto slowly nods. Our story begins with your little rabbit Kaguya or her incarnation. Kaguya Otsutsuki. She was not from this world and from a dying race. She came to Earth with the Shinju or God tree, Musashi starts and Naruto's eyes widen. The Shinju is the source of why humanity has chakra. Kaguya would meet the ruler of the nation of Sonokuni named Tenji. Eventually falling in love with him. However, Tenji was convinced to hate Kaguya by those around him. So she fled with her trusted aide Ano, but what no one knew is that Kaguya was pregnant, Musashi continues and takes another puff from her Kaizuru. Once Ano learned of this, she attempted to stop her lord but paid the ultimate price. Left with no choice, Kaguya ate the fruit of the Shinju, granting her godlike power and turning her into the Usagi no Megami. Soon she would give birth to my creator Hagoromo Otsutsuki and his twin Hamura Otsutsuki. The former humans would come to know him as the Sage of Six Paths, Musashi continues. What happened to Tenji? Naruto asks. Tenji and most of the world were placed under infinite Tsukuyomi to feed the Shinju, but after her sons were born, she freed most to serve her, Musashi replies, and Naruto couldn't begin to fathom it. As Hagoromo and Hamura grew, they started to see their mother's true nature. Her godlike power had corrupted her. Due to this, Hagoromo awakened the Sharingan due to the loss of his first love through his mother's machinations. Soon the brothers planned to stop their mother, which also lead to Hagoromo awakening the Rinnegan, Musashi continues. What? He had the Sharingan and Rinnegan, Naruto says and Musashi nods. Hamura possessed the Byakugan. Now the battle between mother and sons lasted days, reshaping the land and eventually seeing Kaguya merge with the Shinju and becoming the Jubi. The battle soon reached its zenith, with Hagoromo sealing the Jubi inside him and becoming the first Jinchuriki. The husk of the Jubi would form the core of the moon, Musashi explains. The moon, Naruto says and Musashi giggles. Yes, After defeating Kaguya, Hamura would guard the husk on the moon and Hagoromo traveled the world, gaining followers and passing chakra to them, creating ninshu to link others. Eventually he too had children, sons named Indra and Ashura, who would create the Uchiha and Senju. Also by a offshoot the Uzumaki. Musashi continues. Seriously. Naruto says. Seriously. Indra inherited Hagoromo's eyes. Ashura inherited Hagoromo's body. Hagoromo trained his sons equally but Indra excelled alone, while Ashura relied on others and bonds. Eventually Hagoromo sent his sons on journeys to decide who would lead the clan, eventually selecting Ashura for his actions. This infuriated Indra and led to a lifelong fissure between them that created the rivalry between the Uchiha and Senju. Though not so much with Tsunade and Sarada, Musashi explains, giggling softly. Now we get to the heart of the matter. My and my siblings' creation. At the end of his life, Hagoromo split the Jubi into 9 pieces, which became the 9 Biju. Musashi finishes. So the 9 of you scattered around and chakra spread to become commonplace, Naruto says. Yes. Ninshu became ninjutsu. And we 9 were captured by Hashirama Senju after my original self was summoned by Madara Uchiha. Your ancestor Mito sealed my original self to become the first Kyuubi Jinchuriki. Then your mother and then you, Musashi says. Naruto cups his chin. Thought about what Musashi just said. Could Madara have been the one to steal you from mom? But that's not possible, he says. True, and I remember Madara's dark chakra. So it was not him, Musashi says. So it would be someone powerful to control the strongest Biju. So we'll need more information, Naruto says. Agreed. Now you may leave Boya. Relax until to your little shopping date, Musashi says, and Naruto snaps awake to a light rain. He kips up and heads to Ichiraku for 15 bowls of ramen but checks his stats between bowls. 1 leveled up, Naruto thought. I'll add points to Whis, bring it to 45, and the rest to SPD, bring that to 52 inches, Naruto thought. So what do you have planned for today? Ayame asks, wiping the counter. Tsunade wants to go shopping, Naruto says, and Ayame gives the redhead a look. So, a date, Ayame says and has a sly smile. Sarada and Kaguya are coming too, Naruto comments, after downing the broth of his 10th bowl. So a group date, Ayame says. I don't know. Maybe, Naruto says, blushing a little. Well, just be your normal charming self and things will be fine, Ayame says. I'll try, Naruto says and sucks up his last 5 bowls. See ya, Ayame, he says, leaving and heading home to take a shower. He takes a nap until about a half hour before noon and quickly gets dressed in shorts, a long sleeve shirt and a hoodie. Naruto leaves his place and takes to the roofs to reach the village square but erases his presence to land on the large clock. He sees Sarada arriving first in a dark dress and a hoodie, before dropping down next to her. Naruto, Sarada says, and the redhead gives her a 2-finger salute. You two are here first, Tsunade says, wearing a green blouse with white pleated skirt and fishnet tights. I am here and last, Kaguya says, wearing a light dress and a dark sweater. So where are we going shopping? Naruto asks. First we'll go get our new uniforms. Then a surprise, Tsunade says. The 4 head to a shinobi clothing store to buy a dark blue long-sleeve shirt and matching pants in their sizes. Tsunade then leads them to various shops and finally the main course. Why are we here? Sarada says. We're here to buy outfits for Naruto to judge and the one he likes the best. We'll get to have a date with him, Tsunade says, and Naruto's eyes widen with his beat hitching. Wait, what? Naruto says but sees the fire in the eyes of Kaguya and Sarada. Just accept it, Boya, Musashi says, and Naruto sighs. How many outfits? Kaguya says. 1. If I am judging, then 1 is necessary, Naruto says. Deal, all 3 said, heading into the sea of clothes. A half hour passes and finally Naruto sits in front of 3 dressing rooms as the 3 girls prepare. Ready, Tsunade says. Yeah, Naruto says. Kaguya is first with a lavender turtleneck and a black tweed mini dress having a straight neckline, wide straps, V-back detail, and comes to her mid-thigh, black stockings and black loafers. Beautiful, Naruto says, and Kaguya smiles. Sarada is next and has a white collared top with a black waist cincher, black shorts and matching ankle boots. Cute, Naruto says. My turn, Tsunade says, stepping out. She is wearing a short sleeve button-up and a low-cut corset-style vest, shorts and white thigh-highs to show off her legs with high-heel boots. All right Naruto. Who wins? Tsunade says, puckering her lips. Naruto looks between the three and really couldn't make a choice. Do I need to pick one? He says. Yes, all three says, but Tsunade sighs. Though I suspected this. You don't have to choose, Tsunade says and look to the other two girls, since Naruto is the last male of his clan. He will eligible for the clan restoration initiative. Meaning he will need multiple women to bring his clan back, she explains. So we all can date Naruto, Kaguya says and Tsunade nods. Yes, but we have to decide who the head girl will be. So I propose. Whichever one of us makes Kunoichi of the year becomes head girl, Tsunade says. Naruto looks between the three to see Sarada and Kaguya fired up. Do I get say? He asks. No, all three reply. Now that we've decided, let's go to my house to have some food and you can meet Tonton, Tsunade says. The three girls pay for their outfits and wear them out as they make their way to the Senju compound. Has your dad come home? Naruto asks. No, the pervert is doing his research under the guise of the village's spy network, Tsunade says. The blonde's parents are two of the legendary Sannin of Tobiyame Senju and Jiraiya Ogata. The Kree would be my dad's dream, but he came from a civilian family and doesn't qualify, Tsunade says. The villagers give Tsunade, Sarada and Kaguya smiles or waves as they were tolerable of Naruto, but there were whispers of why he was with them. The Senju compound itself is near the northern part of the village and hidden by a forest created by the Shadaime. Tsunade leads them along the forested path. Once they pass through the gates, high trees giving shade from the harmful sun and the sounds of wildlife fill their ears, even seeing a few deer. They reach the home and it is a Japanese-style manor with a koi pond and a place of meditation. Hey Shizune, Tsunade calls out, seeing her mother's apprentice and surrogate big sister. Naruto tries to use observe but can't as Shizune is Jonin level. I really need to level up my observe, he thought. Shizune has black hair that frames her hair and covers her ears with onyx eyes, wearing a black-blue kimono having white rim and matching obi. Hello Sarada. Kaguya and Naruto, Shizune greets and each of them bow. Where's mom? Tsunade asks. Doing her daily meditation, Shizune says, as a pig comes around the corner wearing a red vest and pearls. Boohee boohee, the pig says. This is Tonton. She's not food, Shizune says, leading them to Tobiyame. The older blonde is sitting cross-legged with her hands in her lap and eyes closed. She wears dark yoga pants and a sports bra with her blonde hair in a high ponytail. We're back mom, Tsunade says. Tobiyame opens her eyes to reveal hazel eyes and rises to her feet, giving Naruto a generous look at her body. Now you know what Tsunade will look like fully grown, Musashi says, as Naruto sniffles a little. So these are your new outfits. They look pretty, Tobiyame says, winking at the redhead. She leads them into the house for some snacks and let them know that she would help them with chakra control, Iriojutsu if needed, and this causes Sarada to light up at the chance to learn from the legendary medic. The three would stay until around 4 and each parted from the Senju compound as Naruto would head for the dungeon to level up. The next day was pretty much the same with his daily quest and another dungeon run, continuing to prepare for the hidden dungeon boss. Just in. Community. Forum. More. Naruto the Gamer Experience by Champblaze. Anime Naruto rated. T. English, Adventure and Fantasy, Naruto U, Kaguya O. Tsunade S, Sarada U. Words. 242k plus, faves. 744, follows. 780, published. May 18, 2023 updated, July 19, 171 Chapter 2. And -1, hello everyone and welcome back to the Den of the Drake. I mean Naruto the Gamer Experience. First I want to thank those who have followed and faved. Also if you read the first chapter I did go back and change the levels for Super Saiyan and such. After doing some calculating with some high numbers. By the time Naruto graduates he will be level 100 due to dailies and dungeons, so I changed things and upped the levels. Speaking. Shinbure, Scene Break. Summon. Biju. Game Voice. Opening square bracket ... Pause. Long pause. Chapter. 2. Hashtag Konohagakure no Sato hash. Naruto pants softly as he makes his daily 5 kilometers run with his face hidden by a hoodie and rain falling. It has been just over a week since his life changed somewhat for the better as his new gamer bloodline changed his life. Another week and he would challenge the hidden boss as he has 2 more attempts on the dungeon before it becomes unusable and he would move to a higher level. The changes enacted by Itachi allowed Naruto to see Mizuki fired for his actions against him and few other students as Anbu were watching. The former sent him out for the simplest of things with a smug look on his face, but when confronted broke the former Sandame's law, which led to his firing but also his death. What kind of hidden boss will you encounter? Another type goblin, Musashi says, as Naruto finishes his run. Who knows, Naruto thought. 6 more days pass and the day is Sunday as Naruto is making his final prep for the hidden boss after finishing his dailies but then checks his stats. So the hidden boss will be LVL 37 but I'll level up by clearing the normal boss. Though I have another try but why wait, Naruto says, securing his sword to his belt with the red cord. He's wearing black hybrid Hakama ninja pants with combat boots, a fitted dark top and sleeveless jacket having a hood with black gloves. He uses his remaining stat points on his dex bringing it to 60, Whis to 60, SPD to 70 and the rest to STR bringing that to 72. Naruto enters the dungeon and tears through the goblins in record time, dispatching the goblin champion and leveling up to level 18. You have successfully defeated the dungeon boss. Do you wish to challenge hidden boss? Yes, no. Music. Slipknot, Custer, Loop. Naruto accepts and is transported not to another forest but to a large arena littered with broken weapons and ugly jagged scars gouged into the ground. People were in the crowd with a near-deafening roar as pillars of flames burst from the drop-off around the arena. Naruto sees not a goblin but a man wearing indigo to purple kimono with the right side of his chest and right arm exposed, black boots and black hair in a high ponytail. He has a cynical smile on his face and a sword resting on his left shoulder, his right resting inside his kimono. So, I finally get to see the one killing goblins. Greetings Goblin Slayer. Call me Shin, the man says. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, Naruto says and Shin chuckles. In Uzumaki. That red hair should have been a dead giveaway, Shin says, as Naruto uses observe. Hidden dungeon boss, Shin. Rank. Missing Nin. Level 37, 037,000. Stats. HP, 30,000. CP, 27,000. CC, 70%. STR, 100. SPD, 85. Santa, 85. Dex, 100. Vit, 100. CHK, 90. Whis, 90. Stat points, 5. Bonus per level. Missing Nin, gain 2 for each stat. Abilities. Unknown. He has high dex, STR and Vit. So I need to be smart and his abilities are unknown too, Naruto thought. Well then Uzumaki. Let's see how strong you are. Because the strong devour the weak, Shin declares, as flames rise. Naruto and Shin shoot forward with simultaneous swings as their swords clang loudly and both push on their blades as they scrap on one another with Naruto breaking back into a leap, bringing his sword down and Shin blocking as the ground buckles underneath him. Naruto flips forward and swings behind Shin but he blocks, nice reflexes. Though, Shin says, pushing his sword forward and it ignites to cut open the redhead's right shoulder. Did he set the sword on fire with friction? Naruto thought. Shin drives his sword into the ground and drags it across a tearing row of flames, something Naruto narrowly dodges but Shin raises his sword and sets it on fire with his sheath. Shin brings it down and slashes Naruto across the chest to send the redhead staggering back. So how does it feel to be cut and burned? Shin says. Naruto slows his breath and shoots forward with a Gitatsu strike but Shin catches with blade between his gloved fingers, before yanking him forward into a crushing knee. Come now Uzumaki. Don't disappoint me, Shin says, looking over Naruto. The redhead springs up with several precise swings as Shin parries, before igniting his sword once again and bring it down to burn Naruto's right hand. Are you confused Uzumaki? Shin says, igniting it once again and bringing it down to create a near cage of flames around Naruto. Shin pushes through the flames and grabs Naruto by his jacket as the redhead smells something odd but it is too late as Shin runs his sword along his glove, creating an explosion that tosses Naruto back as the crowd roars. As you languish on the ground, I'll tell you a secret about my sword. It never rusts, never dulls and each person I kill leaves a little fat and oil to be set ablaze, Shin says. Naruto lays on his back as blood pours from his wound but it slowly closes. Thanks Musashi, he thought, putting his remaining points into dex. Uzumaki Ryu style Kenjutsu, intermediate skills unlocked. Naruto gasps as more of his swordsmanship is unlocked and melded to his brain. A sword like that is very impressive, he says, his eyes starting to bleed red. Interesting. Has his blood awakened, Shin thought. Naruto rushes forward with another Gatatsu strike and Shin parries but the redhead chains it into a side-sweeping attack, forcing Shin to dodge. Naruto moves again but with a running Iaido draw that forces Shin on the back foot but he jerks as a chain pierces his leg as he shunshin's back. You Uzumaki were always tricky with those chains, he says. Naruto sprints forward into another clash of swords but this time is keeping up with Shin, breaking through his guard to slash his shoulder at the cost of Shin cutting his side. Shin grabs Naruto by the throat and lifts him off the ground but the redhead brings his hilt down, causing Shin to ignite his glove and destroying his fingers. Clever brat, Shin says, glancing to his destroyed hand. Naruto has his sword in a high stance and his legs bent slightly. Shin ignites his sword into small fire cyclone as Naruto rockets forward. Uzumaki Ryu, tearing claws, the redhead calls out, bringing his sword down. Shin's chest bursts with blood as Naruto's attack connects and his attack burning the remains of the redhead's top, before crashing on his back with his eyes open. Song ends. Hidden boss defeated. 20,000 XP 75,000 Ryo. Level up. Demonic dungeon level 5 open, opponents will now be 10 levels more than yours, and the dungeon boss will be 15 levels above yours. Naruto falls on his bed after returning from the dungeon with his body still showing the scars from his fight with Shin. You did good boya, Musashi says. Yeah and thanks for the chakra aid. Still a long way to go, Naruto says, thanks to Gamer Mind he was not freaking out on killing Shin. You've killed so many goblins. Why feel disgusted, Musashi says. Shin was different. He talked. Though we were enemies. He was a person, Naruto says. Days would pass and it was Saturday as the redhead decides to check out the level 5 demon dungeon. He also learns he has inherited Shin's sword technique and his sword could ignite from friction but containing no fat or oil, instead using the chakra metal from his sword. Skill unlocked ki blasts or energy blasts, use chakra to fire blasts of energy. Attacks can be purchased in store. Level 21. Plus energy attacks, Naruto says, as how to use such skills is melded once again to mind. The dungeon is a desert for miles as the redhead lifts off the ground but also erases his presence before bringing up the store. He buys the energy blade skills Shinritsuzen or God Slicer with its linked skills Violent God Slicer, Azure Dragon Sword and Scythe of Sorrow. Odd names, Musashi comments and Naruto chooses Energy Waves Gaelic Gun, Final Flash, Final Shine and Barorak Seika. This should be good enough for now, Naruto says, looking around and creates about a dozen clones. Spread out and practice our new skills, Naruto says and they nod, flying off in different directions. He holds out his arm level with his shoulder and channels his chakra as his arm to his elbow is coated in glimmering blue energy. Intriguing, Naruto says, moving his arm around like a blade. He dispels his chakra sword and points his right hand but braces it with his left. Barorak Seika, Naruto says, before a wide lightning blast erupts. It meets the ground and explodes wildly but gets a prompt of 10 enemies dead. Really, Naruto says, landing by the wide burnt crater about 15 feet deep. He peers in and sees the charred corpses of large sandworms. It seems your enemy is subterranean, Musashi says. Seems so, Naruto says, creating a clone and it promptly dispelling to tell his other clones the discovery. He then tries another energy wave as green energy forms in his left hand. Final Shine, Naruto shouts, shooting his hand forward and the blast explodes out. A few more sandworm meet their end and more begin to attack as Naruto fires small blasts in a light blue color in every direction. Skill created, Bursting Machine Gun Blow. Half a day passes in the dungeon as Naruto kills sandworms with a combo of energy blasts. His sword skills are hand to hand. The heat helps with his stamina but he needed buy water from the store but soon he would encounter the boss. The ground rumbles violently around Naruto and forces him to take to the skies, while the sand parts for nearly a mile as the sandworm boss rises. He looks nearly my size, Musashi says. The boss roars from his massive mouth as Naruto tries his new skill but it has no effect on the large worm. Looks like I have the speed advantage. Maybe I can use the Gaelic gun or final flash, but there is the charge time, he thought. The redhead creates about 50 clones as he flies higher and raises his arms level as a blue flame aura surrounds Naruto as he charges his attack. Veins become pronounced on his arms and upper body as he brings his arms forward with his wrists touching and fingers spread. Grag. Engra, Naruto hisses, as a orb of energy forms in his hands but tails of energy shooting off ever so often. The wind picks up from the amount of charka Naruto is using as his clones keep the boss at bay. Now. Final flash. Ugh. He roars, his blast exploding forth with enough concussive force to destroy the boss. Naruto pants heavily as his vision blurs and he falls to the sands below but completes his quest. Naruto awakes to knocking and finds himself in his bed. Who could that be? He says, heading to the door and opening. A pair of breasts hit him in the face with loud laughing. How's it going, Chibi? A voice says, before the redhead looks up. Oh, it's you, Naruto says. Obi more enthusiastic. It's your Ainu. The married but Anko Hatake, the woman crows. Sorry Ainu. I woke up from a weird dream, Naruto says, inviting her inside. Anko has violet hair in a fanned ponytail, wearing a mesh bodysuit, jean short shorts, a tan trenchcoat and shin guards with sandals. What about? Anko asks. I was fighting sandworms and one was huge, Naruto says and uses observe on Anko but her level hovers at 40 due to an abnormal status. Quest received. Save Anko Hatake. 1. Remove Anko's curse mark. Rewards. 1. 15,000 XP. 2. Plus 1,000 rep with Anko. 3. Plus 500 rep with Kakashi. 4. That's weird Chibi, Anko says. So what brings you by? Naruto asks, logging into his head to work on his fuinjutsu to help Anko. Guy told Kashi he saw you doing some exercises. So is your big bro, he got concerned, Anko says, sitting on the sofa as he makes some tea. Well, I decided to do some serious physical training, Naruto says. Well, that's good. The Godime's new training for the academy will help too, Anko says. Naruto places her tea down and takes the recliner. So how's your love life? Anko says and Naruto blushes, as she giggles. Well, there is the Senju heiress. Hyuga heiress and Uchiha heiress. Tough choices. Though you may not have to, Anko says. If you only knew, but the number will be 6, Naruto thought and rubs his neck. Think so, he says. Yeah, you're the last of your clan. So you're entitled to the Kree, Anko says. Tsunade said the same, Naruto says and Anko smirks, drinking her tea. Well, I look forward to your harem Chibi. Kashi will be so proud, Anko says, finishing her tea and ruffling his red hair before leaving. Naruto would continue splitting time in dungeons and going to the academy with the sandworm dungeon's hidden boss being an even larger sandworm. He would hold off on dungeons and focused on the academy as his dailies were helping him level up, but also hanging with Tsunade, Sarada and Kaguya would eat into his time, also working on his fuinjutsu. A year would pass and Naruto is entering his 4th year at the academy with about 3/4 of the civilian-born ninja quit. 1 year later, 14-year-old Naruto sits in his class as his thoughts were on trying a dungeon for the first time in a year. His dailies were sufficient enough to help him level up to level 53, his stats were all well over 100. His observe could now see Jonin level and many were 70 and above, his big bro Kakashi near 90. Itachi sits at 100, same as Tsunade's mom and the former Sandame. Due his Saiyan body he would surpass 100, though there could be those surpassing 100 outside the village. He also unlocked the Kaioken, a technique capable of increasing his power for a heartbeat. His strength, speed, and even his sensory awareness is greatly increased for an instant, but it is extremely taxing on the body and he is working on stamina. He can currently maintain Kaioken ×3 for a total of 7 seconds thanks to his clones. The max of Kaioken is ×100, but he could also chain it with SSJ in higher forms. Perhaps by the time you graduate, you will have achieved SSJ, Musashi says. Maybe. Dailies aren't doing much anymore. So I'll need dungeons, Naruto thought, glancing around the class. Kiba is glaring at him as his alpha ego couldn't best him in spars, so he resorted to spreading rumors through Sakura and cronies. They would complain he is cheating in their matches or on tests but could never give any evidence of it. He should sooner or later get it into his head you are stronger than him, Boya, Musashi says. Maybe, Naruto thought. Classes soon end and Naruto leaves with his trio, but they see Kakashi standing at the gate with an orange in his hand. He has silver hair with his Hittite covering his left eye and a cloth mask over the lower half of his face, wearing the standard Konoha attire. He is such a perv. Even though he's married, Tsunade says. Because he reads your dad's book in public, Naruto says, and the blonde nods. Even Sarutobi Jizen reads them, Tsunade adds. Hello princesses, Kakashi says. What brings you here, Naruto says. Wanted to see you, Kakashi says, as the four follow the Jonin before the girls break off. Have you done your affinity yet, Kakashi says. No, not yet, Naruto says, and Kakashi hands him a slip of paper. Well, let's find out, Kakashi says. Naruto looks over the paper and channels his chakra as it splits in half, with one half becoming wet and the other burning. Ho! Futon. Sweeten and Kaden, Kakashi says, and gives his sensei's son an eye smile, 3 affinities. You will have quite the arsenal, he adds. Naruto smiles and may check the store for some jutsu on top what the academy will teach. Will you show me how change my chakra, he says. Sure. I'll ask the Hokage about teaching you another jutsu that will aid you, Kakashi says. He may mean the Kage Bunshin, Musashi says, and Naruto mentally nods. Kakashi would take Naruto to one of the training grounds and show him the basics on change and chakra nature. For his 3 affinities he would have to be able to cut a leaf for wind, burn a leaf for fire, and wet a leaf for water. In turn, Naruto would reveal his energy blasts by passing things off as the reading about the Uzumaki and their ability to create chains with their chakra. Kakashi would ask for a demonstration and Naruto would do some weaker energy blasts, even showing his God Slicer, Violent God Slicer, Azure Dragon Sword, and Scythe of Sorrow. Kakashi is both shocked and impressed, but also thought Naruto has the naming sense as his father, though also thought Azure Dragon Sword and Scythe of Sorrow were cool. Well, Naruto. I'll speak to the Hokage about things. So meet me here after class tomorrow, Kakashi says and vanishes with Leaf Shunshin. Naruto heads home and changes into a dark jumpsuit for the dungeon, also stocking up on food and water in case of extended time inside. He enters the dungeon and finds himself in another forest, but more foreboding than his first dungeon. Checkpoints will be a big help, but only once as a drag, Naruto says, and several Nara sneeze. He creates several dozen clones and sends them to work on the Kaioken, but also deal with enemies as well. Naruto moves around the forest and after about 15 minutes encounters a group of enemies resembling humanoid wolves. I found Kiba's own kind, he says, and uses Observe to learn they are called Beastmen. The Beastmen growl as Naruto remains calm as their ki is not affecting him. Alright, let's go, he says, running towards them. The group of 6 rush forward as the redhead leaps over a wide swipe into a spinning wheel kick, snapping one's head and slicing another with God Slicer. A third swings a claw strike, but Naruto dispels God Slicer and grabs the arm into a judo toss, before grabbing its leg and sending it into a fourth as both crash into a tree. The fifth grabs Naruto from behind, but the red uses his legs to crash his knee into its snout, causing it to let him go, and an energy blast puts it down. The last runs off, but suddenly something slices it down the middle. A big boy, Naruto says. A larger beastman easily about 9 feet tall appears with long claw dripping with blood from its dead kin. It roars loudly and Naruto has to cover his ears, but has the wherewithal to duck under its wide swipe. Clever boy, Naruto thought, connecting with a body blow and dodging its downward counterattack. He turns and runs towards a tree as the beastman follows, but Naruto runs up said tree as it crashes into it, allowing Naruto to land and kill it with his machine gun blows. The boss will perhaps be even larger, Musashi says. Probably, Naruto says. It would be near midnight when Naruto finds the boss, encountering various beastmen of various animals. Some were cat, lizard, jackal, eagle and dragon-like. The boss is in a large area and sitting on a throne of bones with a very muscular body and a lion's head. Musashi had been right, as the boss is easily 20 feet tall and uses Observe with its level being nearly 75. It can also summon minions, but also its regeneration is high and can harden its skin. Music. The Under, Ride or Die. The boss roars loudly and his minions appear with chattering noises as Naruto lowers his stance and unleashes his aura-like blue flame around his body. Naruto releases a long breath and rockets forward as the minions do the same. He meets them with fists, elbows, headbutts, knees, shins and kicks. Final shine, Naruto shouts, erasing a swath of minions as the boss growls and rises to its feet. It grabs a very large Tetsubo as its steps crack the ground and swings its weapon, but Naruto dodges as the boss kills its minions. No care for minions it seems, Naruto says, dodging another swing. He lands on the boss's arm holding the Tetsubo and runs up the length into a leap, firing a blast of energy into its face. The boss staggers back but swings its free arm into Naruto and sends him flying, but the redhead halts in air. That would have broken me a year ago, Naruto says. The boss roars and fires a fire cyclone from its mouth as Naruto flies around it to bring out his Azure Dragon sword. Naruto swings his energy sword in a odd dance, but several javelins of energy pierce the boss in several spots before Naruto halts with his left knee up, his left hand forward and his energy sword aiming down over his head. The javelins explode and knocks the boss on its back, but it slowly rises with its wounds healing as Naruto seizes his energy sword. Kaioken X3. Naruto shouts. A red and fiery aura surrounds his whole body and his clothes acquiring a reddish tint too, even bristling his hair and his clothes. Naruto curls his fingers and places both his hands together at chest level facing the same direction. Fuchsia red energy forms. Gaelic gun, he shouts, firing a large beam. It digs through the boss and forces it on its back. It seems its regeneration is trying to keep up and Naruto grits his teeth. Kaioken X5. He roars, and the beam expands to destroy the boss. Song end. Boss defeated. The next day Naruto heads to the academy, and today is the Shogi Go tournament, but meeting Kakashi after the academy, Kaioken really shreds the body. I could barely move after using ×5, he thought. If you didn't have Uzumaki and me, you would not be walking today, Musashi says. Naruto enters class and sees the trio sitting near the top row before giving each a wave, his thoughts on their goal being head girl when graduate. I believe the little Senju may win out. Though the Hyuga is a close second, Musashi says. Naruto. Mother has invited you to dinner, Kaguya says. Oh. What time and should I bring something, Naruto says. 5 and cinnamon buns, Kaguya says. Of course, Sarada and Tsunade thought. Classes go by as normal and the Shogi Go matches begin as each have matches with Naruto besting Kiba and others, but Shikamaru is always a challenge. You're getting better Naruto, Shikamaru says, winning their match. Thanks Shika, Naruto says. The day finishes and Naruto meets Kakashi and is right, he got permission from the Hokage to teach him the Kage Bunshin, before heading home and preparing to head to the Hyuga. I'll have to fake learning the jutsu, Naruto thought. Give it a few days, Musashi says. Naruto takes a shower and dresses in black slacks with matching shoes and a white button-up, before heading to the sweet shop and buying a dozen cinnamon buns. The Hyuga have one of the larger clan compound and he arrives about 20 minutes before 5, their guards letting him inside and one guiding him to the main house. Hello Naruto, Kaguya says, waiting at the entrance with her little twin sisters Hinata and Hanabi. Naruto is glad Hinata didn't vanish when he chose Kaguya, but she is still shy as ever, hiding behind Kaguya's leg and Hanabi confidently at her older sister's side. Lady Kaguya. I'll take Lady Hinata and Lady Hanabi, their attendant Natsu says and guides the 4-year-olds away. Father and mother are waiting, Kaguya says, taking the buns from him. Naruto slips off his shoes and follows Kaguya to the dinner room complete with low tables and cushions. Hiyashi sits at the head of the table with a serious demeanor and Hitomi to his left with a smile on her face. Naruto. How good of you to join us, she says. Thank you for inviting me, Naruto says, bowing. Take a seat next to Neji, Hiyashi says. Naruto sees the stoic Hyuga and takes his seat, but he did not greet the redhead, just a curt nod. Neji didn't like him or Kaguya for that matter because of the Kumo affair she told him about, losing his father and blaming her for it. Food is being served and Naruto glances to Kaguya's parents. Her mother adores him and her father tolerates him despite his good representative with the Hyuga clan. Dinner is quiet affair as the Hyuga were not much for talking during dinner compared to Sarada and Tsunade's family. He would soon be brought to another room for tea to allow Kaguya and Hitomi to devour their prey of cinnamon buns. The twins were here but no Hiyashi or Neji. Naruto. Do you believe you will become Rookie Shinobi of the Year when you graduate? Hitomi asks. That's still 2 years away but I'll try, Naruto replies and Hitomi covers her mouth to laugh at how adorable he is. Kaguya told me about her bet with Sarada and Tsunade. Because of it I have been stepping up her training. I know you would want a strong head wife, Hitomi says and Kaguya blushes brightly. What's a wife? Hanabi asks and Hitomi pulls her into her lap. A wife is a woman who is married like me or Lady Tobiyame or Lady Makoto to name a few, Hitomi explains. So Kaguya Nisama will be Naruto's wife, Hinata asks. Not yet but someday. Far down the road, Hitomi says and Naruto looks down, his cheeks matching his hair. Naruto would stay at the Hyuga until around 7 and bid them goodnight to make his way home in Red Light District but suddenly a prompt appears. Special quest A summon scroll would come in handy, Naruto thought rushing to find Hanayama. It doesn't take long to find Hanayama as numerous Yakuza were fighting near a bar but the sight is very tall man in a torn up white suit on one knee and an equally tall man standing over him, ha ha ha. I knew poison would do the trick and negate that freakish strength of your, the man says. Boss, another man shouts, being held down by a few men. Several see him as their boss monologues, what are doing here kid, one says, looking like some atypical Yakuza. I'm here to help Hanayama, Naruto says and both men laugh, as one reaches to grab him. Naruto judo tosses him to break some of his teeth as he crashes to the ground and this gets the attention of others. The second swings a fist but Naruto cracks him with a counter, dropping him like a sack of potatoes. Who is that brat? The boss shouts and orders his men to deal with Naruto. Hanayama sees Naruto fighting his rival's men and making short work of them, so that is Naruto Uzumaki the Jinchuriki, he thought. Veins bulge on the rival boss Goto as Naruto tears through him men, his plan of moving into Konoha failing and some punk kid is the reason. How hard is it to kill some kid? Goto roars stomping towards Naruto but the redhead crashes his dress shoes into Goto's face. He recovers and swings some heavy but wide swings as Naruto uses his small stature to his advantage, his hummingbird taijutsu to land counters or crippling blows. However Naruto's eyes bulge as Goto sends a heavy kick and doubles him over but the redhead uses Kawarimi with one of his goons as Goto comes down with a double sledge. Naruto wipes some slobber from his mouth and calls on a little of Musashi's chakra as Goto tears off his suit top, showing off his honed muscles. I don't know who you are brat but you're gonna die, Goto says, icily. Naruto keeps a tight guard ready as Goto rushes forward again but the redhead connects with a knee to his chin into a flurry of punches to his chest. Naruto clenches his right into a leaping uppercut and breaking Goto's chin as he falls to his knees, before Naruto focuses his chakra to his right but a hand lands on his shoulder. Leave it to me Uzumaki, Hanayama says. Naruto watches in mild shock as Hanayama grabs Goto by the throat and literally tears it out with his fingers. Quest completed. Rewards. 1-25000 XP. 2. 750 Rep Hanayama. 3. Summon Scroll. Hanayama turns his attention to Naruto as he wipes his hand on a cloth. You helped me, Hanayama says and Naruto nods, thank you. You have my respect Naruto Uzumaki, he adds. You know me, Naruto says. Not much goes on here I don't know, Hanayama says and beckons for the redhead to follow him. Naruto looks Hanayama and he is easily 6 feet 3 with a muscular body under his white suit and scars on his face, so who was that guy, Naruto asks. He sought to move my family but used weak tactics, Hanayama says, as they reach a nightclub. Several girls smile and wave as Naruto follows Hanayama inside to a office as night-goers were having fun. Since you are aspiring to become a shinobi, I can offer you this as a token of thanks, Hanayama says, grabbing a medium-sized scroll with a green cord wrap. Are you sure? Naruto says. Hanayama places the scroll into Naruto's hand with his eyes hidden by the glint of his glasses. Call it an investment, Hanayama says. Naruto clutches the scroll and bows at the waist. Thank you sir, he says. When you graduate, come here and I'll have one my girls make you a man, Hanayama says. Naruto leaves the club and makes his way but his face turns red as he realizes Hanayama wanted him to sleep with a hooker. It would prepare you for your harem boya, Musashi says. He makes it home and uses observe on his new summon scroll as it says is for the Oni summon clan. Oni, Naruto says. Violent creatures but bring good fortune and some are able to fly, Musashi says and Naruto's eyes widen. The next off day from the academy Naruto would show Kakashi his new summon scroll and explain how he got it. The famed copy ninja is shocked and astonished that a person like Hanayama had such a scroll in his possession. Kakashi would take Naruto to Itachi and register it with the village, but also begin to show him how to summon, also showing him how to sign said contract in blood. Alright Naruto. Prick your finger and weave the signs. Before slamming your hand on the ground or clapping your hands together, Kakashi says. It has been about a month since Naruto has signed the contract. Let's see your Oni, Tsunade says, as Sarada and Kaguya were watching as well. Naruto bites his thumb and weaves the signs boar, dog, bird, monkey and ram. Kuchio's no jutsu, Naruto declares, clapping his hands and a large puff of smoke erupts before he narrowly dodges a blade. The smoke dies down to reveal a humanoid man with long crimson hair tied in a ponytail, amber brown eyes and a set of dual-colored horns. He wears a long white shirt, brown pants held up by a belt adorned with large magatama beads as well as long white socks and sandals. Where am I? The Oni says and sees Naruto, but his eyes widen at the redhead's power. I summoned you. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, Naruto says. I see. I am Hiro and I apologize for drawing my blade on you, the Oni says, sheathing his nagamaki that is tall as him. Are you the boss summoned? Sarada says and Hiro looks her way. Oh, I am Sarada Uchiha. They are Tsunade Senju, Kaguya Hyuga and Kakashi Hatake, she adds. No, that would be Benimaru, Hiro says. So what does it entail for Naruto to be accepted as your summoner, Kakashi says. I will summon our elder and he will be judged, Hiro says and slams his sword down and another puff of smoke erupts. It dies down to reveal a older looking Oni having silver hair, two white, ivory-like horns, a long silver goatee and sharp eyes. He wears a white overcoat, covered on the shoulders and neck by a pale brown and matching scarf. Ho ho ho. What do we have here, Hiro? The elder says, stroking his beard. His name is Naruto and he summoned me, Elder Hikuro, Hiro says. Hikuro looks over Naruto as a third opens over his forehead. I see. You are very interesting, young Naruto, and I believe you can bring our forgotten clan back to prominence. So I accept you as our summoner. Now remove your shirt and turn around, he says. Naruto does as he is told and shows his back to Hikuro before the old Oni places his hands on the redhead's back. He yelps in pain as the tattoo of a red Oni and blue Oni fighting appears, and on that day the first summoner of the Oni clan in decades is born. 2 years later, 16-year-old Naruto sits on the bank of the river that runs through the village, his thoughts on being on the cusp of reaching LVL 100 and with it SSJ. The last 2 years has grinding dailies and beating dungeons to reach his point, but also endless training. He sits unchallenged at the academy, but Kiba seems to refuse to believe it. Upon graduation he would be apprenticed to Kakashi and work as a solo team due to his Kage Bunshin. The hidden boss should put you over 100, Musashi says. Yeah, Naruto says. You graduate in 2 days, right? A voice says, and Naruto looks back to see Hanayama. The pair have become decent friends over the past 2 years and great sparring partner. Yeah, Naruto says. Hanayama chugs from a bottle of bourbon with his eyes on the redhead. Still want my offer from our first meeting, Hanayama says. No. Those 3 would skin me alive, Naruto says. Those 3 are fiercely protective of you, Hanayama says. Naruto gets to his feet and he now stands about 5 feet 8 with his body being muscular, flexible, and durable, having a few scars but his back unblemished. He moves up the bank to bump fist with Hanayama and makes his way home as one goal is on his mind. He reaches home and makes a shadow clone to watch things but work on a project, finish working on Ainu's seal breaker. Once graduation happens, Kakashi may let me do it, Naruto says and the clone nods. Checkpoint. Do you wish to challenge Hidden Boss? Yes, no. Hidden Boss Challenge. Defeat Unchained, user transported to Unchained's domain with restrictions in place. Ki blasts locked, chakra chain locked, flight locked, Kaioken locked, and Uzumaki Ryu style Kenjutsu locked. Rewards: 1250000 EXP. 2. Unlock special area, world will change. Music: The Under Fight loop. Naruto is transported to a very small room of 8 by 8 feet or smaller with his arms above and behind his head, special area. What does that mean? He says, moving his arms and finds his thumbs are locked. Suddenly the metal door to his right groans and tears as the metal twists at the handle, before being ripped open by a man. Greetings player, the man says, walking in after tossing the door aside. He is dark-skinned man standing about 6 feet 3 and packed with muscle in a black three-piece suit. How strong do you have to be to twist metal like that? Naruto thought and uses observe, but his eyes widen. His STR is at 1000. He thought. He must be unchained, Musashi says. Unchained looks over Naruto and touches his body in places. So. When do you wish to fight? I can provide a stage for us to fight, Unchained says, smiling. No need for that. We don't need to wait, Naruto says. You want to fight right here? Unchained says. Naruto wastes no time with a rising knee into a kick to the throat as he lands, sending Unchained into the wall and spilling blood, but the large man slams a palm into the redhead. Naruto crashes through the wall as Unchained flexes out of his suit and leaving it standing, leaving him wearing a tiger speedo. Then let's begin player, Unchained says. Naruto breaks his cuffs and punches Unchained's gut, but he grabs Naruto's arm and pulls him back through the wall, grabbing his ankle and starts flinging the redhead like one would put a sheet on a clothesline. Naruto couldn't make head or tails of things before Unchained lets him fly up, only for him to spear them through several walls. Unchained picks Naruto up and tosses him into the steel door with a thud into a weighted punch with enough force to rip it off its hinges, sending Naruto off some railing and falling about 20 feet. Seems we're in a prison, Musashi says, as Unchained lands near him. Naruto tries to move, but Unchained grabs his ankle and flings him like wet towel with enough force to crack the concrete floor a foot deep. Is that all player? Unchained says. Naruto slowly starts to move and rises to his feet with this air about him before removing his shirt to reveal the dueling Oni on his back. Thanks for the wake-up call, he says, and Unchained chuckles, raising his arms. Naruto readies to attack, but Unchained shocks him by manipulating his muscles and becomes an almost complete sphere. What? Naruto says and sends a heavy punch into Unchained, but it has no effect. His muscles are very defined and may dampen your attacks, Musashi says. Naruto clenches his left arm as his veins become pronounced into a heavy step in, but Unchained grabs his hand and opens like the jaws of a giant predator. He pulls Naruto in like he is eating the redhead, before spitting him like a piece of gum. Unchained looms over Naruto and raises his foot to bring it on, but the redhead snaps awake to roll away from each. Naruto rises, but Unchained slips back into his ball, and this time the redhead is ready by letting himself be caught and drives fingers in his nose. Unchained cries out in pain and sends Naruto crashing back with a backfist, but he recovers, shooting forward as both connect with heavy blows. Keep pushing Boya, Musashi says. Naruto and Unchained keep punching with blood flying, but the latter is being pushed back until Unchained's back hits the wall. Hyakuretsu Ken, Naruto roars, with 100 fists slamming into Unchained until he falls on his butt. Naruto now finds himself back in Konoha, but the village is smoldering from unprecedented destruction. What the hell happened? Is this what was meant by special area? He says, running through the streets and finding scores of dead, but two he immediately recognizes. Kakashi. Ainu. Naruto shouts, rushing to the downed bodies. Kakashi is shielding Anko with a sword through his back and her chest as Naruto falls to his knees. Who could have done this? Naruto says. I do not know, Boya, Musashi says. Naruto slowly closes their eyes and springs to his feet as terror fills his eyes, but he has to find someone alive. He continues to search and finds the likes of Shikamaru, Choji, Ino, Tyuki, Ayame, Hanayama, Hitomi, Makoto, Tobiyame, Shizune, Tonton, and even Itachi. Naruto, a voice calls, and Naruto sees Sarada on the ground with a hole in her stomach. Sarada, Naruto says, reaching her. Sarada weakly reaches her hand up to his face as he kneels. He came in the blackness, she says. Naruto says. He was too strong. No one was safe. He took Kaguya and Tsunade to the town square, Sarada says, her hand falling and face unmoving. Naruto clenches his fist to the point of bleeding and punches the ground next to them as it fractures. I'll make him pay, he hisses. He rises to his feet and rushes to the center of the village and violently murder the person responsible for killing his precious people. Naruto reaches the center of Konoha and his eyes widen in horror as a figure shrouded in shadows is holding Kaguya and Tsunade by the throat, and Naruto, both choke out. How good of you to finally join us, Ninjin, the figure says. Let them go, Naruto shouts, but the figure only laughs. Why should I? And if you wish to know my name, call me Rose, the figure says. Why have you done this? Naruto says, his anger boiling. I simply did it on a whim, is something I wanted to say. However, it was you who pushed me to this. Beta male, Rose says, and Naruto's eyes narrow but his eyes widen in horror as Rose atomizes both. Naruto's body trembles as he falls to his knees and Rose is revealed to be Kiba, but his brown hair is pastel pink color with faint white highlights. I now see why you were always so strong. Now I have the same power as you. Meaning I am the true alpha male of our species and every female is mine. Kiba shouts. Naruto doesn't hear Kiba's ranting but replays the deaths of everyone, and this rage fills his body as he grips the dirt. Kiba says, as the wind picks up. The source being Naruto as dark clouds move across the skies of Konoha and the ground cracks around the redhead, his body trembling in rage as veins bulge on his arms and his red hair spikes up, giving it a rising, flame-like appearance. Naruto rears up with an echoing roar of rage as his body explodes with golden energy and it dies down to reveal Naruto now on his feet, his red hair now a golden blonde along with his eyebrows. His azure blue eyes are now a pupil less greenish blue, his muscle tone more defined, and his skin tone now lighter with a pulsing, flame-like aura. Kiba, why you will pay? Naruto roars, his aura explodes and rushes towards Kiba. He flares his dark pastel pink aura but Naruto slams a punch into his gut and his eyes white out, sending him crashing through several buildings. Kiba recovers but it is too late as a large yellow blast atomizes him like he did Kaguya and Tsunade. Naruto hovers above the crater with a blank face as prompt appears. Song ends. Quest complete. Rewards. 1 SSJ unlocked. Naruto awakes on his bed with a start. Was that all real? He thought, rubbing his face and sitting up. I don't believe so. Perhaps a means to awaken SSJ state, Musashi says. Naruto goes in his bathroom and does his business. Seems so real though, he says, getting dressed in his academy uniform. He makes himself some breakfast of a dozen eggs adding cheese, bacon and slices of toast bread before starting on his dailies, which have doubled and he can use shadow clones. Now to see it in action, Naruto says, making some clones and erasing his presence to enter a training ground to make one more clone. Okay, transform, Naruto says. The clone focuses and his muscles become more defined as his hair raises, flashing between red and golden blonde as his golden aura explodes. Naruto stares with wide eyes at the sight of his SSJ self, so that what it looks like from the outside in, he says. How can we swing this for training, the clone says. I'll have to send some reinforced clones outside the village, Naruto says, dispelling his clone. He makes his way to the academy and sees the others arriving but his face scrunches at the sight of Kiba and keeps calm. It wasn't him, he thought. Naruto, Kaguya says and Naruto turns with a smile. She has grown more beautiful in these 2 years, her snow white in a high ponytail and a bust to match a certain blonde. Hey you too, Tsunade says, her blonde hair short in a bun and clocking in at 106 centimeters. Hey, Sarada says, annoyed at her stacked friends. So today is the day, Naruto says, pushing the quest's events to the back of his mind. Indeed, the three said. They head inside as several were looking in jealousy towards the trio and raged towards Naruto but knew better to mess with him. Everyone is milling about and talking as Iruka and he calls for them to sit down for the written test being the first part. Naruto goes through his test but decides to check his stats as he does. Strongest in the village, Musashi says. Maybe but I should keep going, Naruto thought and thinks of Unchained's strength. He soon finishes his test and places his head down until the other finish their tests, adding his points into STR bring him to 565. Teachers collect their tests and led them outside for their accuracy test on stationary but also static targets. Clan children make various scores between 17 to 20 with Sarada getting a perfect score compared to Kaguya and Tsunade. Naruto gets a perfect score as well to Kiba's ire and Civilian get close 15 or below with Sakura getting that. Look like I am ahead, Sarada says. By 1, Tsunade says and Kaguya nods. Naruto ignores them to talk with Shikamaru and Choji about a few things but mainly food, the redhead bringing up cheeseburgers and this causes Choji to want to try it. Naruto told his rotund friend that he could invite him and Shikamaru for burgers. Come to my place at 6, Naruto says and both nod. S2. I'll invite Ino as well, Sarada says and Naruto nods. So a graduation party, she adds, again another nod. The final part of the test is dispelling a genjutsu, demonstrate their skills for their chosen skill set. Each prospective genin head to the testing area when their name is called and returning with or without Hitai 8. Kiba comes back with a smug look on his face, but it didn't matter Naruto as he has Shinobi Rookie of the Year locked. Each of the trio pass in their own way and each hoping to be Kunoichi of the Year, winning the title of head wife for Naruto. Naruto Uzumaki, a teacher calls out. Naruto head to the area and immediately dispels the genjutsu, good. Now demonstrate your ninjutsu, taijutsu, kenjutsu, bojutsu and fuinjutsu, another teacher says. Naruto faces a teacher in a taijutsu spar and his skills are fluid with no wasted movements, adding some bojutsu into it as well. Ninjutsu, a teacher says. Naruto starts by weaving signs to bird into clapping his hands and uses the gale palm, then more signs to tiger and sets a magically appearing card on fire, lastly signs to dog for several Mizu shuriken. 3 affinities with such an ease of transition, Uruka says. Naruto raises his sleeve and applies chakra to a seal on his wrist and a bakken appears, fuinjutsu and lastly kenjutsu, he says. One of the Anbu having a Neiko mask appears, I will be your partner, she says. Thank you Neiko, Naruto says. Uruka and the other teacher watch the elegant dance of swords by Naruto and Neiko, while she holds the advantage Naruto keeps up. Enough Naruto. You've passed, Uruka says. Naruto and Neiko bow to one another before she vanishes and he takes his Hitai 8, now then. Time to collect the rest of my harem and work my way to SSJ4, he thought. That was part 1 of What If Naruto Got Harem with Sarada, Kazuya, and Tsunade. Do you want me to continue this harem story into part 2? Let me know in the comments. And please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Fox Fan Fiction for more Naruto What If adventures.